Ashi, you can start now.
Okay. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to July Meetup. I hope you all are safe and are doing well. Before we start with our today's meetup, let me give you a quick introduction to our Nulls community. So, the idea behind Null is it is to share knowledge in the area of information security and to promote and advance security research and make infosec learning fun. So, since 2010, Null is registered as non-profit society and trust in Pune. Everything here is free and open, but also there is no place for hate speech, piracy, and unlawful activity in Null. There are two types of events conducted by Null. One is meetup and second one is workshops. So Null meets are monthly meetups that take place in multiple cities where infosec enthusiasts like us discuss about security, and they generally last for 2 to 3 hours. Also, Null conducts free workshop, and it's basically of three types: Null Hamla, Null Bachao, and Null Pulya. So, Null Hamla relates to offensive side, Null Bachao relates to defensive side, and Null Pulya is we discuss skill bridging events and activities are conducted in Null Pulya, and these workshops are conducted for nearly 2 days. Null Community is an event hosting platform of Null. You can find all the information related to Null over here. You will also be able to get an archives of all the previous event that were conducted. So Null also has a mailing list where primary discussion and announcements are done. You can join this mailing list for the same. It also has jobs.nulls.community where all the security related jobs are posted on this portal, and it is also a free platform for all the member of community. So who is Null community member? So anyone who wants to be associated with us, it can be anyone, speaker, student, volunteer, anyone. Here are some highlights of 2020. More than 81 events happened across all chapters of Null. Nearly 137 speakers presented. More than 3,700 people attended meets and workshops around the year in 2020. Null Ahmedabad took a Hamla session on Web Recon. Null Mumbai had a Hamla session on building Active Directory lab for red teaming. Null Delhi's Hamla on deep dive into Metasploit. And Null Bangalore's Hamla on advanced Android penetration testing and multiple combined Hamla with Hack the Box. So where are we headed? We are headed toward increasing the number of chapters and participation in community, increased collaboration among various communities to help evangelize information security, mentoring students from various colleges and university, and more meeting formats, and also recording and live streaming the events. So many organizations who are being kind enough to constantly support us by providing us the space to meet and share knowledge. Here are a few of them: Citrix from Bangalore, ThoughtWorks Chennai, Sophos Ganpat University Ahmedabad, where we used to conduct most of our physical meets, Adobe Delhi, OpenText Hyderabad, Airtel Delhi, Progress Software Hyderabad, Institute for Technical Education Bhopal, Directiplex Mumbai, Emirates Dubai, Payatu Pune, KPN Amsterdam, and many more who are not in this list. A big thank you to all of you. Shout out to other infosec community who are doing great work locally, and some of them are Garage for Hackers, Sysinfo, OWASP Chapter, DEFCON Group, InfoSec Girls, and many others. A note of thanks to all the chapter leaders who always guide us, all the organization and institution who have supported us in some format in conducting the meets, and all the volunteers who work hard for our community. Thank you so much. So now we will start with our session, and I will hand this over to Pooja. Pooja,
Yeah, thank you, Ashi.
thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. I am Pooja, and today I'm going to host this meetup. So now let's start with our today's session. Today we have Chloe Mesdagi with us. She is a VP of Strategy at Point Security. She is the founder of We Are Hackers and co-founders of VOSEC, which is Women in Security. She is also an ethical hacker advocate. So today she is going to talk about burnout, the threat to security teams. Hi Chloe, thank you for joining us. We are
Thanks for
really
having
glad.
me.
Yeah, we are really glad to have you with us today in this meetup.
Lovely. All right, hi, everyone. I hope all is well and good morning. I'm in the evening over where I am, but I hope all is well and you guys are starting your morning off amazingly. All right, let's go into the real reason why you're here. Let's talk about burnout, shall we? So I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. All right. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to turn off my camera so I can focus on my slides. I hope you all don't mind, but let's do this. Okay, so welcome to Burnout, the threat to security teams. This talk, I just want to let you know, is we're going to dive into why burnout exists in our industry. And by our industry, I mean InfoSec. So for those that don't know who I am, my name is, once again, Chloe Mustagi. I am the co-founder of We Open Tech, which is basically an organization that's for all marginalized genders to all come together and allies to make sure that we all have equity and equality, regardless what our gender is, that we can have any role that we desire. Hacking is not a crime. You may have heard of it. We basically are trying to get rights around the world for the hacker community because they are the ones that are protecting everyone and caring about our security, but they also need protections too. And so this is what Hacking is Not a Crime is all about, is to change the way that the public perceives us and instead bring us rights at this time. I'm also a co-owner of Open Tech Pledge, which is basically a pledge that organizations can take to make sure that there are marginalized persons on their leadership team, so their C-level and their board, because this causes a trickle-down effect for diversity, equity, and inclusion to actually exist in a company. I am a growth strategy consultant and career consultant, and when I'm not doing that, I do advice columns on Security Boulevard every Friday morning. Friday morning, I mean in the US, so I guess I'd be your evening or Saturday morning, depending when you look at your computer. Also the host of the Change Making, the podcast on ITSP Magazine, where basically I meet with change makers in the space and the issues that are within tech that we should look at and try to improve on. If you want to know anything else about me, feel free to go to standoutintech.com. My handle is at the top. My DMs are always open. Feel free to add me on Instagram, Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Now let's get into the real reason why you're here. So this scene may look familiar to some of you, but this happened to be RSA conference in the US about a year ago. And this happened to be 2 weeks before everything went into lockdown here. And I just remember us being in a room together, no masks were worn. We had no idea what was going to end up happening, but it was a wonderful time because we got to gather with each other. We got to give each other hugs, shake hands, go to lively events, and basically kind of talk really, really loud into each other's faces because we had to, because it's so loud in the events. But it was a wonderful time. But couple of weeks later, the rest of the year turned into this. 2020 was a hard year for us. And even in 2020 towards the election, we were at that point like, please make it stop. And I know that over there in 2021, it's been incredibly hard. It's been heartbreaking too as well. And it's okay for us to admit this right now, which is that we're walking on a very fine line of being just barely okay and terrible. And all of us have been dealing with burnout. Well, not all of us. Let's be real with each other, okay? I mean, I'm looking at you, New Zealand, the lucky people and place. But even before 2020, before we even started talking about burnout, this has been existed in infosec even before then. It's been an ongoing problem that maybe we have talked about over and over again, but nothing has been done to resolve it. And it feels like we're talking in circles because nothing has been resolved. When we know how bad it can be. And for those that don't know, don't worry, I'm going to tell you about this. But with burnout, we're placing ourselves and organization at a security risk. We will most likely click a link because we're not 100% who we are. We may not patch right or overwhelmed by what is needed to be patched ASAP. And sometimes we're kind of seen as robots, not as humans. And humans cannot handle this 24/7 work because when we're working all hours and always expected to be on calls, how do we even balance a personal life and work life? And that's because burnout occurs when we do not practice self-care. And when our work demands more from us and we spend less time on personal life, the balancing is gone, stress increases, we feel guilty, we struggle to sleep because we feel like we're trying so hard not to drown. You may even notice changes on your team, such as employees withdrawn or fast to become sad or angry, or delays in email response or projects. This can be seen when remote too. And right now, working from home and remotely has increased the number of hours worked, increased expectation, it has really increased the blurriness of work time and limits. And some people have quit because they cannot handle the juggling of work and personal life because their company failed them. I want you to understand this. Their company failed them because they weren't willing to be more flexible and they didn't practice inclusion and equity. And I'm going to be so blunt with you is that we haven't had a 9-to-5 job, period. And this is the contributing factor because employers push employees to work from 9 to 5 and yet send emails with Slack messages before and after hours. This places you and your team at a losing situation because we feel obligated to respond. And this is why the burnout cycle continues. And for those who are not aware of what burnout starts to form and look like, it can be that it used to take a few minutes to respond to an email, but now it takes an hour or so. You feel exhausted and trapped. You may even feel empty, or you feel like you're drowning, or you feel trapped. You push yourself to a breaking point, and when you're no longer coming up with new ideas, but rather taking medication to help with the aches, you're overly anxious over events and deadlines. You can easily cry or get angry faster than usual, and you may not respond to friends and family when they call or text for some time. And then that guilt starts entering. Your personal life is slipping, your life is now your work, and you start to feel unappreciated for your work at work. And then you basically become resentful at your work. And then you end up hating it and dreading your job. And this is the moment you may lose your team members, or they might actually end up leaving our industry because that's what we've been doing, is that we're putting employees at a huge health risk. Don't believe me? Well, here's some scary things to know about burnout. This is what happens to your body when you're burnt out. Is that no matter how much sleep you get, you feel exhausted, you feel emotionally depleted, which can mimic depression. You may even struggle to sleep, such as trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. And when we're stressed out, cortisol increases, and it gets so hard to shut down our minds, which causes us to toss and turn and reduce deep sleep or even getting enough REM. And when we don't get proper sleep, stress levels increase, mental state can start shifting to anxiety and depression symptoms. And when we're overly anxious or experience depression symptoms, we start to get sick like way more often, such as gastrointestinal issues, headaches, infections, cold, flus, cold sores, rashes, or even irritated skin, and a lower immune system. And when our immune system is so low and stress is high, our joints and muscles get stiff because our body's on survival mode, thinking that there's a perceived threat. It can even turn into muscle weakness and fatigue. If left untreated, prolonged stress increases high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes because there's too much adrenaline and cortisol over an extended period. Clearly, burnout is not a joke. It's extremely serious, and we have a real problem in our industry that's leading our colleagues and ourselves into this situation. So we're going to talk about the reality of working in security, that high demand, that 24/7. Now, these are some statistics that came from dark reading, and granted, this research was conducted before the pandemic. So please note that these statistics are a lot higher than the numbers that you're seeing on the screen and what I'm about to read to you. But 21% of CISOs said that they've taken a leave of absence because of job-related stress, and 41% of CISOs took the significant step, even though many report being afraid to take sick days, and 35% neglected to take all of their allotted time off. 48% of CISOs said that their work stress has impacted their mental health, while 35% said it impacted their physical health. 40% of CISOs said that their work stress has impacted their relationship with their families or children, and 32% said it impacted their relationships with their spouse or romantic partners, and 32% said that it impacted their relationships with friends, and 23% said that they use medication or alcohol to manage stress. But once again, these numbers are actually probably a lot higher now. But 94% of American CISOs and 95% of UK CISOs reported working more than their contracted hours, on average 10 hours per week. In addition, 83% of the American C-suite execs and 73% of UK execs confirmed they do indeed expect security teams to work longer hours. In other words, you and I are expected to work beyond normal hours. Now, the thing to understand is that the CISO is a manager, a leader, and having someone who's burned out that leads can be really dangerous to employers. It becomes security risk. It becomes an increasing possibilities and managerial issues. Coping with such issues can lead them to self-medicating on the job and walking a very thin line of what is appropriate. But once again, this is not a CISO's fault. It is a system that is broken, an industry that isn't sufficient in the long run. It's an industry that continues to fail us and runs on people being burned out. I want to take a moment here because I want you to understand is that we have a foundation that doesn't empower us. We have a foundation that disempowers us in every single way. And there's no wonder we have a rotating door and a mental health crisis in our industry. And I'm about to show you why it's like this. So why are we so burned out? Well, being in security, we're monitoring and operating 24/7, and sometimes we work throughout the middle of the night, and sometimes we cannot sleep well because we're always at the edge of our seat when it comes to security, because we know attackers work at all hours, and we're always worried when a breach will occur because we all know if there was a breach, it would be an ad hoc style to fix it. You don't believe me? Well, let's be realistic with each other, because research came out from the Ponemon Institute that while security response planning is slowly improving, the vast majority of organizations surveyed, 74%, are still reporting that their plans are either ad hoc, applied inconsistently, or that they've had no plans at all. Additionally, more than half, 52% of those that have security response plans said that they never reviewed it, or even had a set time period for reviewing or testing out those plans. And with COVID-19 and working from home, how many of these plans have been updated? Yeah, this is one of the reasons why there was a 300% increase of successful breaches. And you know what we tend to do about this situation is that instead of trying to figure out and how to plan and having less disruption, we throw tools at the problem because it's so much easier to throw tools at it rather than understand the human element, that the role that it plays. And a spoiler alert, we're actually making the situation a lot worse by doing this, because when we add tools to it, guess what? It's not on the plan and coordination is off. And these third-party tools, we have no idea how secure they really are. And this is why we're stressed out. This is why our cortisol levels rise. And if it doesn't for you yet, how about this scenario, okay? I want you to pretend we're on a cruise ship. But I want you to pretend that you're part of the crew and you just found out that your ship is sinking. But you found out after for some time because you were not alerted by your system. So your customers are aboard, trusting you for their safety. Your team is scared, and some are paralyzed by the fear of failing. But they're trying their best. But here's a catch. Your entire team hasn't slept well and has seasickness. So they're not exactly 100% state of mind. If anything, you could say they're kind of functioning the same rate and scope as someone who is burned out. Okay, now you have the backstory. Now imagine your captain pulls out a safety binder to know what is the protocol. Unfortunately, that binder was basically not on the ship. The updated version is not on the ship. You have an old procedure, but you have new features to the ship. Are you stressed out now? Because this is what it's like. This is what it's like when we're dealing with bad plans and when we don't consider the human element. It leaves you with a wreckage. Now, the truth is that bad actors are everywhere. They attack all hours, and 0 days drop often, and we constantly need to be up to date on what bad actors use. And that takes time and energy, and this is why we're struggling. We're part of that crew, and when we don't function well or communicate well, it becomes a really scary situation. The reason we're insecure is because we know how incredibly important it is, but we also need to come to terms that if we work all around the clock and don't practice self-care or even promote employee wellness, what is the point of this? Because then we can be a danger to the organization as well if we're running on low battery and feeling not well. And I just want to say right now is that this is why burnout matters. This is why if we keep turning to tools and not finding the time to plan, prep, practice, and self-care, we become that security team that sinks. We won't be able to fix the breach fast, and that's really scary. And I know that sometimes what happens is that the employers turn around and blame you. And if you are an employer, please listen to this, because you tend to blame them if they're not performing well. But it's because the majority of you don't understand is that you let a team member go without checking to see what have you done that has reduced their performance, because chances are they're burned out and feeling very alone. With COVID-19, we're taking care of family members on camera daily, unable to leave our homes, can't see our friends and family. Some of us live alone. Some of us put off important life events, and we've lost people close to us. Our colleagues are struggling, and we are worried about keeping a job. We're worried about even getting a job. We're worried about affording the life that we have. We're worried if we have COVID. We're worried we may not make it through. And the reality is that we are not a machine. We are a human, and the human element created security and runs security. And we're struggling with staying okay before COVID and even right at this moment. Except New Zealand. Let's be real with each other. So, how can we lead like the Prime Minister of New Zealand? Think about it. She worked with the people and planned. And when you plan, there's less disruption. So we're going to go through 4 investments that you can do right now at this moment. Investment number 1, listen and take action together. Be strong, be kind. Ask your team what they need. Don't just listen, take actions. When we listen to each other and strategize together on how to improve the team and or the department, it reduces the stress, because stress happens when we're not being listened to or we feel uncomfortable to speak up. Your colleagues may share that certain tools aren't needed, or there's a tool that does 5 things all in one that is better, and they may share what is missing on the team, and perhaps less meetings are needed. By working together on what are the issues, we can collaborate together on how to reduce the issues or completely resolve them. Investment number 2, plan together, strategize together. With collaboration and listening, working together with a team to make strategies and revisit your security response plans, make it up to date. Revisit the plan every time a new tool is removed or added. Team member change, environment change, and so on. By creating and making solid plans, it helps speed up the recovery and reduces the stress of when a breach occurs, that there's a plan to follow that's up to date. You owe it to yourselves, your colleagues, your org, your customers. I mean, look at what New Zealand did. They planned it out, and they worked across with all these people that were specialists and wanting to make sure that they put the people first. They understood human element comes first. And they had 25 deaths. And when we look at our own countries, I live in the States, you live over in India, I'm assuming, we've lost so many people. And it's so disheartening because that could have been reduced. And that's the thing that is concerning. We have to work together. We have to strategize together. We have to plan together. We have to listen to each other. We have to take action together because it works when we do. Investment number 3, encourage self-care. Studies have shown that when dealing with burnout, taking 1 week off away from work or anything related to work provides recovery for burnout. If your employee is burned out, make sure that they feel supported to take time off, and also encourage it often to the team. Majority of employees in security are afraid to take time off because they feel guilty for not being there to help their team, or they feel like they're giving more work to their colleagues and they feel terrible, or even coming back to a dumpster fire. If you can, it's so important that we should also be giving at least 1 day off a month for a mental health break. And lastly, make sure you have 1 day per week dedicated to not having any meetings whatsoever. This allows your colleagues to catch up on any items or projects. Investment number 4, be kind and respect boundaries. Please be kind to one another, because from what we've learned, when we work together and understand how we impact others, we start practicing empathy. And empathy is certainly missing at times in our industry. But by listening and being there for one another, it reminds us that there's people who care for each other, because we cannot assume how someone is doing by how they look or their performance. We do not know what each other is going through. So instead of going at someone, refrain and think before you speak or act, because you really don't know how that will impact the other person. So as New Zealand shares, be kind, because that's the element we need to stick together to protect the world from the darkness. But also know that being kind is respecting work boundaries, such as 6 feet of distance and a mask. So what can you do right now? Take a screenshot of this or take a photo of it and share it with your colleagues, with your friends, with your employer. And the reason for that is that this will take only 15 minutes to do, and it will change everything in your company to reduce burnout. The first thing you could do is set weekly one-on-ones with your team member for 15 minutes per a week. Now, I want to reiterate here that this 15-minute, it doesn't have to be 15 minutes, it can be less than 15 minutes, but basically it's a time where you meet with your employer and you go through the projects that are on basically the timeline and what to prioritize. It's having a conversation on why you think this thing needs to be prioritized, what projects you're working on. And then after that meeting, it's important for the employer not to follow up. And the reason I'm saying that is, like, when you follow up, sometimes that becomes micromanaging. And when you micromanage your team members, that means you don't trust your team members. And when we don't trust our team members, we're setting ourselves up to have burnout on our team. Because we need to have flexibility, we need to have trust there, so then we feel comfortable in our job, so we don't stress out about it. So then we can focus on getting work done versus, am I going to be okay in this job? Now, the other thing to do is that make a Monday or Fridays a no meetings day. Every week you should have either Monday or Friday a day where you don't have any meetings whatsoever. This is the day where you do basically catch-up work or focus on projects. Now, set up a meeting with the team to explore ways to improve together. Remember, one of the ways to invest is to actually listen to your colleagues. Ask them, how can we do better? How can we make our security stronger and better? And talk to your employees. You don't have to always think it, how am I going to solve all these issues? You have a team. That team's there supposed to help everyone out. So it's important to have a meeting like this. The other thing you can do is create an anonymous survey that people can fill out so you can get a sense of what's going on your team. Just note that not everyone wants to participate in it because there's always this fear that it's not truly anonymous. So just note that you're not going to get full, people wanting to do it, but it's really important to try it out anyway. Now, lastly, remember when we work together and listen to each other, magic does happen. And when we work together, making sure people get personal time off without them fearing of taking time away, we're then becoming collaborative. When we collaborate, we reduce the stressful items that hold back the team from thriving. And when we focus on balancing work and personal life for everyone, that's when we're no longer having that dumpster fire, burnout. Because burnout is not a security concern anymore, because we know we're human and the human element rules the world that we live in. And whenever in doubt, just remember, if New Zealand can plan well, so can you. Because in all of us, there's a Frodo within us who's on a journey to get rid of some malicious threat. So quick overview is that burnout places you and your team at a huge risk. Collaborate to form strategies to improve the team. Work with your team, ask them, be vulnerable, listen, take action. And start making plans and revisit security response plans. That's so important to have. When we have that, that helps us because a bridge is going to happen at some point. We don't know when, but at least if we're prepped enough, it will help. Now, the other thing is to promote self-care by being kind and respectful to boundaries. I just want to say thank you so much for attending this talk. I'll be here for a little bit of Q&A if anyone has any questions. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or send me DMs. It's okay. My DMs are open. That is my handle. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, put my camera back on, and happy to answer any questions. Any questions that we have?
So do we have any questions on YouTube? Swar, can you check?
Hi. Hey, Kro.
Hi.
Hi. So we don't have any questions currently. Yes.
No worries at all.
Yeah.
Well, if
I
no
think.
one has, yeah.
Just a second. Let me check
Okay.
once more. No. No, we don't have.
No worries. If anyone has any questions at all, feel free to DM me. Thank you again for having me. It was an honor to be here. And good morning again, everyone. And stay safe.
Yeah, thanks for the session, Chloe. We really enjoyed it. And I think this is going to help a lot of people out there in our security community. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
So let's move
I
to our
think we
second.
just got a question. Okay.
I think she left.
Venkatesh, you could ping your question query to Chloe on her Twitter handle too. So I think she would be open to answer there. Actually, we don't have her in this stage. Yes, Pooja, you can take forward from here.
Yeah. So let's move to our next talk by Shreya
Shreya
Pohekar.
is joining in few minutes, so we may have to wait for.
Okay, so let's wait for 2-3 minutes.
Yeah. So till then, if you have any queries regarding any info, say how to join Ahmedabad or want to know more about us, so you can ping in the YouTube channel. So we will be open to answer there. Okay, hi, Siddharth. So, so to be a part of Null, you have it is there is no such kind of any procedure or a form you have to fill in. You should be enthusiast enough to take part in infosec community, to contribute, to share your knowledge, what do you know. And if you are starting, then you could just attend the meets. Even you could ping your questions in. You can attend monthly meets at each and every chapter. I think the place you are staying at, they would be having a nearest chapter. So if it doesn't add, you could contact to the null also, if you want, if you are have a community, or if you have a strength enough to start off a null chapter at your locality. So these are the like nominal parts to be a part of null. We don't have any membership or any forms. So yeah, maybe that could have answered your question. I So Pooja, we have Shreya here. Let me add her to the stream. Hi Shreya, good morning.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Yeah. So now let's move to our next talk by Shreya Poyeka. She's a system engineer at TCS. She had led InfoSec Girls Bhopal and Venja and is a security researcher. And today she is going to talk about roadmap to getting your first CVE. In that, she will discuss about what are CVEs and why you should have them, the standard roadmap to follow for finding a CVE, where to submit the bug once you hunt for a CV, and learnings you get while you hunt for a CV. So hi Shreya, hope you are doing well. We are happy to have you with us. So without wasting any more time, I will give it to you, Shreya.
Thanks a lot for that introduction. Okay, I'll share my screen. Uh, is that visible? Okay, I'll
Yeah,
get to the screen.
yeah, it's visible.
Okay, fine. I'll start. So, hello everyone. I am Shreya Pohekar, and today's topic for presentation is getting your first CV. Even if you have a CV, this talk can be useful in order to get a few more approaches on how you can look into targets and hunt your next CV, maybe. So, let's get started. Who am I? As the introduction is already given, but still, I'm chapter lead for Enforcer Girls Bhopal. I was previously leading Null Bhopal chapter. Also, I've been volunteering for Vinja community. And I'm a developer as well as a security researcher. I blog at shreyapoekar.com, and you can follow me here on two of my handles. And this is my code vigilant profile, which lists all of my current CVs. So that was about me. Okay, well, sorry. So, in today's talk, we'll be discussing CVE in a nutshell. Means what exactly is a CV? Why should you have a CV? The standard roadmap. It There can be many approaches, but I am talking through my experience, so that is that. Then the learnings you get and vulnerabilities you should look for if you are a beginner into this field. And once you find them, where to submit your bugs. And at the end, I'll be covering a interesting story from one of my findings, like the advantages you get when you have the source code handy. Okay. So CVE in a nutshell, CVE stands for common vulnerabilities and exposures. So if you have already heard of the term bug bounty hunting, this is exactly similar to it, but the only difference lies here is that while you hunt for bugs, you do not have access to the source code. Even if you find the bug and submit your report to the concerned authority, they would never tell you what was the vulnerable source code, and they will just fix it. But here, when you are doing CV stuff, then you also have the access to the source code. So you get to know what vulnerable code was responsible for that particular bug that was being present. So that's the very basic definition of what exactly is a CV. Now the second term here comes is who is a CNA. CNA is a CV numbering authority. The top level route with which all of this started was the Mitre. Now a lot of organization companies have come in, and they are also a CNA. And what that means is, like, if you submit them the bugs, they have the authority to assign you a CV number. So I can maybe get to this page, which is a list of all the CNAs that are present till date. So here we see the Mitre Corporation, that is the top level route, and then we have a list of all the companies, like we have Apple, we have Autodesk, and lot more. And it's the long list, and all the things that you see in this particular section is the way to contact them. Means if you find a bug, for example, in WP plugins or the the WordPress, even you can submit the bugs to this particular contact given, or they have listed a submit form as well, which you can fill out to, like, submit your bugs. So same works for everything. Like, you find bug in this particular, maybe Splunk, so then you can contact this particular to this particular address. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay. And the last term, CVSS, is basically a score that has been given to your vulnerability of how much critical it is. So it's used in the bug bounty world as well. It's being used here as well. There's a CVSS calculator as well that has like many attributes that you need to fill in, and based on that, it calculates the score of how critical your bug is. Okay. So that was CV in a nutshell. Why should you have a CVE? So the simple answer is, when you are hunting for CV, obviously you are hunting on a real world platform, means the real world application that all the people use. So obviously you get the exposure, and you can explore your understanding on different type of bugs as well. You can do your own research, try different things out. So yeah, as simple as that. Means while you do bug bounty hunting as well, you are testing on a real facing applications. So that's the same, just you set up your own code locally here, but the thing is being used by a lot of people. So yeah, makes the same sense. So that's why you should have CV, because the platforms like there are right now, like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, they are all good to get started into these fields, but still you need to have some practical exposure, and that these things can give you. So that's why you should have it really. Okay, so the roadmap, the important slide of this whole presentation. So just like you do choose a target for bug bounty, it's the same way you have to choose the target first, like on what particular platform you have to hunt. Like you can pick up some most popular open source software that are being into use, like one of them is WordPress, Drupal, and a lot of CMS that are into use, and that are open source because you need to have the code, right? So first thing is to choose the target, then you set the code locally. So setting the code locally, as in you go to the GitHub, you selected a target like WordPress, then you search for how to set up WordPress locally and all that, so you get your environment ready. Then the third point is you should move from code to feature or feature to code. The point means that um, the second point, if you are a beginner, you should start with this feature to code, as in you set up your code locally, then you try out every feature that was present in that particular application, every button, every functionality for every role. You should check out every single thing. So while doing that, you might come across a vulnerability, for example XSS or SQLi or whatever, means whatever it is. So you need to then map that feature to the code. So what happens is, like, I found XSS while testing on a functionality. So I'll dig through the code and I'll get the exact line where that particular thing was present that was making the application vulnerable to XSS. So that is feature to code. Now if you do it for a long time, you'll have a better understanding of how the code flows and how it works and all that, what are the functions or the code snippets that can make your application vulnerable. So you will get through it, and once you get through it, then you can go from code to feature. Means now you have identified, like, if I pass in a variable into echo statement without any sanitization, so this code becomes vulnerable to XSS. So that should be the approach if you are beginning into the field. And one more point that I would really suggest here is to stick on a single language, because if you switch to multiple languages, it would be the case that you don't properly understand the code. But if you are on a same language all the time, then it would be very easy for you to identify how the code is written, how the things are working, what function do what things, and all that. So that's it. But it's really a choice, means you can go with multiple languages if you are comfortable. So that's up to you totally. So that was the most important point I want to talk about. Then the next is, found a vulnerability, you should create a report. And why I'm stressing this is because writing a great report is really necessary, because a report should be such that the person you're submitting the report to should be able to easily recreate what you're trying to say. Means you found a bug, maybe SQLi. So you should create a report in such a way that the person is clearly able to understand what the vulnerability was, how did you do it, how did you recreate it, all that. So for that, you need to write a great report. So that also I'll be covering in later part. And once you create a report, you can submit. And for submission, I've already told that you can submit the things over the specified mail addresses or contact forms. Okay. So major learnings while you hunt for a CV. So obviously you are doing web pen tests, so you would become good at it. Obviously, because just except for few things that you get exposure into while you're doing bug bounties and while you're doing CVs, is just when the things are hosted on servers and load balances and all that stuff. So things like that can be excluded, but apart from that, SQLi, XSS, directory traversal, SSRF, CSRF, everything is being covered here as well. Means while you are doing CVs. So that's a good place to start at even. So that's first point. Then second, you learn how to do source code review. And if you are into a developer side as well, if you love developing, you will really understand how people write code, how for a single functionality, how people write different approaches. And that would help you a lot while you code something for yourself. Okay, so that's a huge plus point. Then yeah, writing good code and identifying the vulnerabilities. Means while you do secure coding and stuff, while writing, you will automatically get to know that what I'm writing is not a good code snippet, you need to change something. So that comes while you read a lot of codes. So these 2 points give you that. And the report writing, you learn to write good reports. And yeah, it's a tedious process although, but it's all worth it, because if the person is able to understand in a go, then it's all worth it. So yeah. Okay, vulnerabilities to look for. As I told, XSS, SQLi, RCs are very great. Means wherever you see a file upload functionality, you should really check for that. Then insecure deserialization and XXC are a few that are being tricky, but if you are a beginner, you should not really look into these, but you should really look forward to XSS and SQLi. And wherever you get the functionality to like import something, like import image from URL, then if a URL is into consideration, that you should really check for SSRF. Then directory traversals are also very easy to identify, like if certain functions are being used for a particular language, then you should really you like go for this as well. So it's like first you go from feature to code, you identify like what all things can be present, and you can map. And after mapping, you get the things like, okay, this was also possibility, this was also possibility, so things can work out that way as well. Okay. So, as I said, once you find your bug, you can go to this particular thing, and for whatever organization I found out the bug, you can submit there. So, also there is a field here called request CV IDs. So, so that was this particular page. Okay. Update a CV record is also a section. And I think if you have found the bug for a particular software which is not present in any of this thing, so you can directly reach out to the top level root. Okay. And if they are present, then obviously you can directly go to them. So, okay. The next slide. Okay, so this was a cool thing I found recently. That's hunter.dev. So what this is, you are getting bug bounties as well for finding the CVs. So these are paid CVs, you can say, and they have got here some nice stats that 90% of the users got the first CV while on this platform. So it's a great place to look at, and you can go to the activity section and you can find out what people are finding, how the reports are. So it's great. And a lot of platforms are part of this program, like Adobe, Kubernetes, and all that. It's listed down here. Okay, so see, the way they write the report might not be the perfect, but you get an idea that how a report is written. I'll show my reports as well. Okay, so major people that are part of this particular program. So now hunter.dev is also a CNA, means they are having the authority to assign you the CV number. So bugs that are submitted through this, so they might be the one who are like giving out CVs. Okay. So bug bounties, listings, then you submit a vulnerability from here, then public write-ups. Okay, work with the best. And this is how a CV thing looks like. So CWA is the weakness, means the SQLi or the injection or the CSR, that thing. Then the severity, CVSS I was talking about. So based on multiple factors, this can be decided. Then the bounties. Okay, and that's the CV number that's look like. So CVE, then 2021 as in this year, and the rest part is the ID. So those who are the CNAs, they are already been assigned some reserved CV numbers. So we had an instance like if I were getting multiple CVs at a time, then those numbers were like CV 2021, then 001, then 002. So that was like that because they are being assigned into like continuous ID numbers. Okay, then that was Hunted or Dev, and you should really check this out. And it can be a good place to start the things at because you get all the open source projects into one single platform. So there won't be a need to like start the thing from finding the whole like target and stuff. So this is giving the platform, so you should really use it. um Okay, so that was uh, hunter.dev. Now, okay, so before this particular slide, I will show you my reports. So these are the CVs till date I've got. All are on WordPress plugins. So let's open up this. So the way we have written the report starts from a plugin name and the version that is being affected to XSS. Okay, so this XSS that I found was unauthenticated. So there are 5 roles when you're working with the WordPress and WordPress plugins. That is unauthenticated, subscriber, then author, then contributor, then editor, and the highest privilege one is the administrator. So this was like you do not need to be authenticated and you can still get the accesses. So CV number assigned, and this was the disclosure timing. But the important thing here is the technical details. So the first line should exactly describe where the issue was and what the issue was. So when an unauthenticated user enters his email address to enter the giveaway, he gets a shared link, and that parameter is not sanitized, and that's why it's vulnerable to reflected accesses. So next thing is you need to give where the vulnerable code is. So here, as you can see, that share ID was a numeric value that was being inserted into echo statement without any kind of sanitization and stuff. So that's why so the initial format was giveaway my giveaways share equal to 1, and if I change that to script tag and the whole XSS payload, you will get an XSS trigger. Okay, so that was how it was working. So that's the POC screenshot, and the fixed code means since the author who developed the plugin, they had updated the code for it. So we also link a code to the fix one, and you can really go and check that what exactly was fixed here. So we can really go and check out what the changes they did after I submitted the bug. Oh, I'll have to find. Okay, what was that line number? 357. Yeah, so this whole code was gone now, and there might be addition somewhere here. 357. Now see, they are using escape attr and apps end as a filter to that share ID. So whatever you enter now, it won't get reflected, means it might be converted to some encoding or stuff, but it won't give you an XSS pop-up. So that was the fix by them. And yeah, that was one thing. Then another report for maybe this one. So this was a report for this excesses, not excesses. This one, side menu. So this was SQLI. So again the technical details in just one line. You identify the vulnerable file and the vulnerable code. So here the vulnerable code was uh, the this parameter del id was being directly passed into SQL statement without any kind of sanitization, and also they were not using prepare statements. That's the single most thing you do to prevent SQL injection. So they were not using this. So that's why it was vulnerable to SQL injection. So again, here the POC screenshot has a thing of SQL map results. So there it's retrieving the WordPress as a WP as the database, Bob at localhost as the username, and the banner like on what system it is running on. So that's the POC screenshot you should attach. Like if SQL map for some reason don't give you results, then you can maybe, like, this was a time based plan, right? Like you need to do some sort of sleep in order to get the results. Okay, there is no union based query here, so none of your parameter would be reflected on the application. So at that time you can also use time command, like you write time and the next your request command, yes, and you will get a delay in execution. So that's how you can do if for some reason SQL map doesn't works for you. So that's the another thing. So then we write the exploit of how, what was the vulnerable request and what was the SQL map command. And then we write the SQL map output in case means if it's SQL map output, but if we are using, if the application is vulnerable to union based, then you can directly put up screenshots of the parameters like Bob at localhost being reflected in your web application. So that can be also part of screenshots. So that was for SQLi. Then SSRF, and what else was there? Directory traversal was also there. So you can check out that later. And now to the last part of this, an interesting story from my findings and the benefits of having the source code handy. So while I was testing various WordPress plugins, this was one of the plugins which was having some really interesting scenario. That's why I wanted to cover. So I had also blogged about it previously. Uh, so what was happening here was, the scenario was there was a image upload functionality, and when you used an image to be uploaded from the WP uploads folder, means if you have used WordPress you might be aware that once you upload a image you get to the WP upload section. Okay, so once I did that, it got reflected like the list view of images. It reflected the whole URL of the image. Okay, so URL, just skip this payload for a while. So the URL looked like WP contents, uploads, and this thing date and the bcm.php. Ignore this payload for a while. So since this was a whole URL and this was being controlled by me, because whatever URL I enter here, it would be reflecting here. So I thought maybe we can just enter double quotes here and skip out of the src tag, and then we enter a new attribute on error alert 1, which would probably, which should probably give the alert pop-up, and there will be excesses. So that was my thought process. So I followed the thing, and I'll just zoom it a bit. Okay, so if the screen is visible, I think it might be. So yeah, I did the thing and I got the accesses. So I was happy. Okay, I'll make another report now. But Burp Suit was on at the same time, and I got an interesting thing here, that BCM, and after entering the double quote, it was getting escaped. And still, my another attribute on error alert one was being executed, and I was getting excesses. So I was like, okay, this is some weird thing going on. So I was going from feature to code, not from code to features. So I mapped the whole thing out into the code, like what's happening there. So while I was doing the code review, I came across this particular code snippet that told me that image URL is having a filter of sanitized text field. So I was like, okay, because of this filter, we are getting an escape, like a backslash there. But I was wondering, like, if the double quotes have been escaped, then why I am getting the excesses pop up? I should not, because the quotes were escaped, and SRC tag should have never been completed. So so after realizing that, I got to know about context, like there are XSS context, if you are aware of. So these are the places where you can uh, like have accesses, or you can maybe work with accesses. So these are HTML tags where you can insert your payloads or filters. And then there are tag attributes, then there are JavaScript template literals. So in our case, it was HTML tag attribute. So HTML tag attribute as an just a second. So here it was an HTML tag img, and the payload that we inserted was inside HTML tag attribute. Okay, so that's why our context was HTML tag attribute. So since our context was HTML tag attribute, so what happened was the backslash that was added by the filter was now becoming part of the whole URL, and it did not escape the double quotes. And since the double quotes were not escaped, we could write another attribute that was on error alert one, so that basically popped up the excesses for me. So that was for, so here what was the developer's mistake was, he didn't realize that he was using a wrong filter at the wrong place. If he had used some other filter that was basically encoding the double quotes only, then the exploit might not have been possible. But he did use the filter at the wrong place, and the filter was now senseless. Means to use a filter, not to use the filter, was the same thing now. So that's what I realized after whole of this researching. So since I found that sanitized text field was one of the fun filters not to use, so I found out other two as well. So if in case a developer is using this functions uh, apart from like sanitized text field, still the code is vulnerable, because I pasted the response like, since you are now having the capability to view the source code and you can also modify the source code, so I just changed the sanitized text field here, this to WP strip all tags. Okay, so you can obviously easily modify the source code here. So the thing was same. Okay, it was also escaping, but you are still able to get the on error thing. So you were able to get the excesses pop up. So these two are also vulnerable, but the rest that I've listed, see the difference. While you use different kind of filters, it's now encoding everything out. So this again becomes not vulnerable. So same with other things, they were totally URL encoding or escaping in some, like, see, this scenario is not at all vulnerable. So same with escape HTML. So if the developer might have used these things, so there might not have been excesses in the first place. So that was that. And one thing more that I came to know from this particular thing was like while reading multiple source codes of multiple plugins, I found out that this was a very good approach while we are developing something, because if you are not sure that this particular filter like escape attr might miss a edge case where still we are able to like get accesses, so they are using combination of two filters so that there should not be any chance to get accesses. So that was a good coding practice I found while I was like browsing through the source codes. So it was one this thing. And yeah, that was my story and interesting research that I did for one of the plugin. And yes, that was the end of my presentation. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can really ask. I'll be happy to answer.
Thanks, Shreya, for the insightful session. So let me check if we have any questions on YouTube.
Sure.
We haven't got any questions on YouTube yet.
Yeah, I understand it's Sunday and it's morning. No problem. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me over my Twitter handle as well. That's Shreya Poekar. So I can answer there as well.
Okay, Shreya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot for inviting. Thank you everyone. Have a good day.
Okay, same to you.
Bye bye.
Bye. So now let's move to our last session. So do we have Janika with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So Janika is working as associate security consultant at Secure Layer 7, and she is going to talk about OSCP and her career into cybersecurity. This talk is all about the fact checks and breaking down the myths of OSCP and cybersecurity as a career. Hi, Janika, glad to have you here. How are you today?
Hi, I'm so thankful for being a part of this. I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you. So, are you ready for the session?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll share my screen.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, is it visible? Can just anyone confirm?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janika, and today we are going to talk about all about OSCP and as well as starting a career into cybersecurity. Well, I am an associate security consultant with Secure 7. I I'm recently certified as OCP. I sometimes like to play CTFs, and I am a football fan, so I like Arsenal. You can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can also keep reading my blogs as I keep posting interesting things. So let's get started. So a lot of people are really curious into getting started into cybersecurity, but the thing is that they just don't know where to begin with. Often they read a lot of things on Google, or they ask a lot of people, and everybody has different responses, and that is the reason why they tend to get confused to where to begin exactly with. And this implies to a person who is from a technical background and also somebody who is not from a technical background. So we'll break down certain things in this so that anybody who is interested into starting their career into cybersecurity can get a clarity on where to begin with. So the main reason is just I personally believe is to look upon into yourself and just go back to that memory which hit you, and that got the wow factor into you, and just said that what got you into cybersecurity. For some people it might be the news about certain attacks happening. For some people it might be movies. For most of the people it's movies. For some people it's like that. For some people are aware about this field, but just don't know where to begin with. So there is one thing that gets you or brings out the wow factor in you and just gets you into that this field is interesting. So go back to yourself and just think what was that, because that is that plays a lot of important role into into which domain you exactly want to be in and where your interest really lies in. There are different domains, of course. As a pen tester, and we're going to focus wholly on that. There are other things as well into this field, like there is DevSecOps, then there is digital forensics, um, and stuff like that. There's script analysis. There are various different other ways also into cybersecurity. Um, and there are SOC analysts as well, but we're going to focus fully on ethical hacking as a pen tester. Or you can also call it as a job role of VAPT. So there are different fields again in that there is anything that is connected to internet can be hacked, as we all know. But again, there are different sources like web application, APIs, mobile. In mobile, there's Android applications, iOS applications, there's cloud, there are IoT devices, it may be cars, your TV, speakers, anything, any IoT device. The thick client applications are basically the applications you download in your Windows system, which is the exe files, and then you just double click and now will just click forward and you install it. So those applications as well. There is cryptology, there is blockchain, there is network, there's telecommunication. There are different domains. So the main thing here is where to begin with, or with which module or which domain you should begin with. Well, it's all basically, it lies on you and your interest. It's not necessary that you should start with web or mobile. It completely solely depends on your interest, and that is the reason why I told you, or I suggested that go back to that one thing that gave you a hit and brought your interest into cybersecurity. um, so if somebody is interested into IoT, if somebody is interested into web, if some might be interested in network, the main thing here is to focus a lot on basics. Try to understand what exactly it is. If, for example, if I am a person, I might be interested in web application, and maybe I saw an attack, and or maybe I read about an attack, and that just was like, oh wow, this is so cool. Like, yeah, I'm a hacker and I'm cool and I'm doing it ethically. It's not that I have bad intentions. So If I get that wow factor from me from a web application, then just understand web application, go back, understand how it works, understand the complete basics of it. Basics play a huge important role in this domain as well, and in other domains as well, but here as well, because the basics connect the dots. So if your basics are clear, you'll be able to understand the attacks properly. You'll be able to understand the logic of the application properly. You'll be able to understand the mindset of an attacker with bad intention properly. The one who has bad intentions or is hacking or for the wrong purpose. We as a pen testers hack for protecting, for uh, for just giving a hint as to where your code is wrong, or it what impact it could cause if somebody else finds out the bug. So this is our job role as a pen tester, that we protect. But there are certain people who have bad intentions, or we'll get to that later part. But understanding the basics and having a clear idea on the basics are really important, because they help you to think like a hacker. They help you to build your logic skills. Um, and the most important thing is error solving is also really really important. So if you know the basics, these all dots are connected, it helps you give more clarity. So your skills are important. It's not just that you know a certain thing or you know a certain attack. It's not just that. Your skills define you. And what by that what I mean is knowing basics. I'm focusing solely on basics because that is so crucial. Tomorrow you find an attack, and if a non-technical person comes and asks you about it, you should be very clear about it, that even a kid or somebody, maybe your parents or maybe your mother, even that person should understand it properly. And if you're able to help them understand it, that means your concepts are really really clear. That means your basics are clear, and that means your knowledge on that attack is clear. And that can be only possible if you have good knowledge on your basics. I'm solely focusing on basics here. And that that will help you to chain again that will again help you to chain multiple attacks. And maybe you might find 0 day, or maybe you can perform a supply chain attack, uh, you know perform different attacks and create a huge impact out of it. So again, this only is possible as long as your basics are clear, and I'll be repeating this sentence even again ahead, because it's really really crucial. It's all about how clear you are with a concept, not about how much you know. You might be a person who might be knowing different attacks, but at the same time, if somebody comes and asks you a very basic question, you might not be knowing about it. So, again, at the end of the day, if this is the situation, you might make a fool out of yourself. And the person might think, yeah, that this person knows so many things, but a simple question is unable to answer. So, again, focus on your basics, keep clarity on that. From where to begin with is all again on your interest. Mostly people begin with web application because, again, it's easily accessible. Web application is everywhere, and technically and financially, there are even in CTFs, bug bounties, there are web applications. Not mostly, I would say, not like 100%, but mostly there are web applications. Even if you go and play CTFs, we look upon and further what CTFs are and how important they are. Even in CTFs, there is mostly web application. So web application is also really important. So mostly people begin with web application. They're easy to understand. They're easy to cope up with. There are a lot of attacks as well on web application. A lot of resources are also available to learn web application pen testing on the internet. So people in general begin with web application. I myself personally also began with web application. So but again, at the end of the day, it's your interest. If you are somebody who's really into network, uh, or if who is really into IoT, start understanding different protocols. literally basics like different topologies, different network devices, literally start from there. So if you have a clarity on how they work or what they are, for what they are used, the ahead attacks for you, it will be much, much, much easier for you to understand, and then you can come up with your own, maybe an attack or maybe a zero day vulnerability. While learning about it, the constant questions that you need to keep asking yourself and keep asking Google to get more knowledge is what, when, why, and how. What is that? If you're looking for, maybe, for example, let's take a very basic thing, that what is an HTTP request? What is that? When does that from client, when does it go to a server? Or why is it going, how is it going? Curiosity here plays a huge role, like really a huge role. So you constantly have to be a curious, you have to be curious like a small baby. Even if you tell a baby that if there is a utensil on a gas, and if you tell the baby not to touch it, you know the reason, because it's hot. But the baby is so curious, the baby is not going to understand, and still at the end of the day, he's going to touch the cooker, and we'll be like, oh my god, now he's in pain. But at the end, curiosity plays an important role. So keep being curious on every single thing. Even if you're getting an error, even if you're unable to solve it, even if you're unable to understand a particular thing, be curious. Why you're unable to understand it? Go back to where did you begin from, and start connecting the dots. Start analyzing yourself. Why aren't you understanding? Analyze yourself. Are you clear enough, or have you understood it well enough that if anybody comes and asks you regards to it anyhow, will you be able to understand? Will you be able to explain it to that person? Will that person be able to understand? So for this, keep constantly asking these four questions. What is a vulnerability, for example? When does this vulnerability happen? If we take an XSS, a very basic or very common vulnerability, what is XSS? When does XSS happen? And why does XSS happen? How does it happen? And along with that, you can also learn about how to mitigate it. But again, that's on the defensive part. But these four questions are constantly going to help you to understand the smallest of smallest thing very clearly. Even if you're reading any article and you come up with some big technical word and you're unable to understand it, ask these questions about with regards to that word. Google it and keep going in depth. You don't have to go to a code level. In this field there are people who are technical, and again in this field there are people who are non-technical. So somebody who is a non-technical is not going to know coding, right? Initially, for initial phase, for somebody who's just a beginner into this field, just stepped up and wants to start doing good, you do not need to know coding, but you need to have good logical skills and good understanding. And for that, the more you go in deep, the more is going to be beneficial for you. So the deep, as in, I'm not saying in terms of coding level. So if I tell you what is a cookie, you don't have to go to how to write a cookie for your for your website. You don't have to go to that level, but you can understand like what is cookie, when is cookie stored in the browser, or how it is stored in the browser. What are different parameters in cookie when cookie is being stored? Why is it being stored? So you will understand cookie more properly. So keep constantly asking the right questions, and that is what, when, why, and how. The basics. Again, basics are important. Learning Linux is really, really crucial for anybody who wants to start as an ethical hacker. And the biggest reason is that Linux is open source, and a lot of tools are written in Bash because they're lightweight and they have really minimal code. So they are mostly implied, or they're mostly available only on Linux. So that is the reason why over 90% of people who are into infosec cybersecurity, they use Linux. Linux is really very it's open source. You can get its code also freely. You don't even have to pay for downloading Linux. Absolutely nothing. Linux is completely free, minimal, less maintenance, less cost, more secure. The most important thing, it is more secure. And so Yeah, so this is the reason why people use a lot of people use Linux, and so learn Linux, Linux commands, Linux file structure. So that is how you can learn tools that are in Linux. It may be for password cracking, it may be for SQL injection, anything. It may be for password directory brute forcing. So these tools are only available on Linux. So learning Linux is also really important if you are somebody that still trying to figure out from where to begin with. I would say just start first by learning Linux, and automatically you'll find your way. But knowing Linux, no matter in whichever domain you are interested in, knowing Linux is really important. So learn Linux. There are a lot of free resources available on the internet where you can learn Linux for free. So, but learn Linux, that's important. Learn Linux to command line level, to file structure level, that you need to understand which files are getting stored in which directory, or how to use a command properly. How can you use different flags along with the commands, for your task to get completed. The another most important thing is CTF. A lot of people learn about hacking also by playing CTF. CTF is like capture the flag. It's like a game. It's like a competition for hackers. So basically, there's a purpose. A vulnerable application is there, and there are different challenges. The network challenges, web application challenges, cryptology challenges, etc. And these challenges are purposely made vulnerable, but there are some flags stored in it. So it's like treasure hunt. So everybody might be familiar with a treasure hunt game, right? So you have clues, and then you go to the next place, and there is clue, and then you figure out the next place, and somewhere there is treasure. So it's just like that. So consider treasure as the flag. So you keep getting clues. You keep have to attacking. You have to perform different attacks again, and use a lot of logic, and uh, you go from one step to another, and to third and to fourth, and finally you get a flag. So it's like a competition. A lot of people learn about hacking through CTF competitions, and the reason being is that it's a lot of based on crucial thinking. You have to really think harder, and you have to also it's scenario based, real time scenario based. It There are other things as well which are not technical. For example, it helps you to show how passionate you are, or how desperate you are to learn new thing, or how curious you are, that it keeps pushing you deeper and deeper and to dig deeper. So CTF is really important. I do play CTFs. Hack the Box is one of the platform which is like CTF based, where you have to crack a vulnerable machine and find out flags at the end of the day. So to participate, there are a lot of CTF competitions as well. You can join a team or you can participate solo, but it will also boost your confidence to a whole another level. So every CTF challenge is going to teach you a new scenario. It's a very rare case that you might come across the same CTF challenge or a same CTF scenario. So every CTF challenge is going to teach you something new, and it's always beneficial. So uh, learning, practicing CTF or participating in CTF competitions is really, it's cool, of course, and also it helps you boost your confidence. It helps you boost your knowledge. You learn more deeper then eventually what you will be learning. So there are different types of CTFs. There's red teaming, blue teaming, or red teaming attack keeps on attacking for flags, and blue teaming are somebody who keeps defending the flag so that red teamers don't get it. Again, there are different mix styles. Then there are packet capture CTFs. There are web application network. Again, I said there are attack based or defense based CTFs as well. So it all again depends on your interest. Keep exploring as much as possible, because as don't just say that, oh, I'm not interested in this because you just don't like the name of it or something. Just don't judge. a book by its cover. So just don't judge anything here. Keep exploring. You'll try eventually, even if you fail. At least you will understand that, oh, you are interested or you're not interested. If you are really not liking it, or if you don't want to you don't want to go deeper into that, then you will understand eventually that it's not meant for you, or you are not interested in that. But even after you fail, you're still curious as to why you failed. That means you are interested into that. It may be web, it may be network. Again, it may be if you are on the attacking side and you're finding flags, performing different attacks. Even if you fail, you'll be interested as to why you fail. And even if you're on the defensive side, or if you're onto a blue teaming and you're trying to, protect the flags, but again a red team or finds a flag, but that again you failed, right? But that also, it's fine. You will understand that if it doesn't entertain you much, or if you are not interested much in it, then you eventually will understand that it's not for you, you're not interested. So then you might again explore the other field. So keep exploring. That's how you will keep understanding. Even you'll understand the different domains, how they work, how they are, and eventually it will bring out the exposure in you as to which domain you are interested the most. Okay. This is all about starting your career into cybersecurity. So far we've understood that knowing basics and learning Linux is really, really important before you step on to understanding different domains. After you're done that, try to understand different domains. Try to, try to find out in which domain you are interested in the most. And again, with that, start again with basics. Basics is the key here. So keep understanding what is the device, what is the topology if you're into network, if you're into IoT, understand different protocols, how IoT devices work, what is IoT, what is web application, or what is cryptology, what is a telecommunication device. So at the end, it's all regards to that domain itself, but you have to just understand it and explore the basics into a depth level. Then you move on towards advanced. Don't hurry or don't just rush up, because if you rush up, you're going to miss out on the basics. And you'll just keep learning new things over and over and over again, but you'll miss out on basics. So give yourself time. It is okay. You'll fail once, you'll fail twice, you'll fail thrice, but each and every failure is going to teach you a new thing, and it never goes to waste. Trust me, never. So keep exploring, and now we're going to understand what is offensive security, and we're going to all understand about OSCP. Now, people have this huge mindset that if uh, specifically in India, that if you give a UPSC or MPSC exam, you get a government job. So people think that if you give an OSCP exam, you're going to get a security or in cybersecurity infosec job. That's wrong. That's a myth. It's not like that. Please just don't give OSCP just to enter into cybersecurity. OSCP is a certification that gives you an identity. It gives you a proof that you know something of this field. It's not necessary that it's going to give you a job. Okay, or you get a job when you have great skills, and trust me, this field has less exposure and more job roles. So there are a lot of jobs available as into cybersecurity, as a pen tester, SOC analyst, any field that you want to go in again. But OSCP is not the key. OSCP comes much to a later part. Okay, so if you feel that OSCP is something that if I give an OSCP and then only I'm going to get a job, that's a wrong thinking. Focus on your skills before even you enroll for OSCP. See, OSCP is not it's not a cheap exam. It's pricey, and even everybody who knows about OSCP knows how much it is worth. It's really very pricey. So it's really, even the reattempt for the exam is, a bit beyond affording for me myself as well. So of course, even out people, yeah. So it's really, it's not cost efficient. So before you begin or before you give OSCP, no matter what the worth is of the exam, but it's totally worth giving as well. So of course it's pricey, but at the end of the day, it's so much worth it, and it has that level of importance. So before you enroll into OSCP, learn about it, learn a lot of things, understand that what it takes to get in to be certified as an offensive security professional. Get to know about it. Don't just directly target that, oh, I want to give OSCP before 18 or before 25 and so on. No, the more you are good at skills, the more it will be easier for you to crack OSCP. At the end, it's a vulnerable machine that you have to crack. It's not so protective that you won't be able to crack. It's not that. It's vulnerable, but it takes certain skill set, it takes certain knowledge, and it takes a lot of logical thinking. If you have really built your mindset like that since day one, you entering into this domain, then OSCP is not going to be a difficult exam for you. It's going to be a cherry on the cake. But if you're somebody who is just getting into this field just to give for OSCP, then you might go somewhere wrong. And I have come across people who have that. So please, first focus on your skill sets. Anybody who even who is considering a different domain can give OSCP. It's not necessary that only a web application, somebody is interested in web application or somebody is interested in network can only give OSCP. Somebody is interested in IoT, somebody is a SOC analyst, even anybody from other domains as well can also. Somebody is into reverse engineering, malware analysis, even they can give OSCP. It's not limited. Anybody can get into this field, or get into this offensive security world. But again, you need your skill sets right. You need to have a really good mindset. So again, offensive security, before you get into offensive security, learn Linux to depth, like literally to depth, understanding each and every small things in Linux, not to a kernel code level, but at least about different commands, about different tools, about different file structure. Again, I said previously also, understanding which file is stored where in Linux. This gives you so much, it saves your time, it gives you clarity, it helps you what to do next. Okay, so if you are somebody that who have been doing this since day one, then again it's going to be very easy. But if you somebody who doesn't know about it, it's never too late, right? So you can always start. You can learn web application attacks because OSCP is partially on web application and on network basis. So you have to exploit certain, maybe you have to exploit certain CMS, you have to exploit certain web applications. You may not know what is hosted. Again, it's vulnerable at the end of the day. There are certain services that you need to exploit. That is why you need to know even a bit of basics of network. Different tools for password cracking, for directory enumeration, uh, automation tools again for OSCP are not allowed. So try to learn as much as manual as possible, because if you have good knowledge on manual, not just for OSCP, even in general, if you have good knowledge on manual testing, automation is going to be an easy process for you. But what if where somewhere, if consider you're performing a bug bounty, you're finding a bug on a bug bounty platform, or you're giving an OSCP and here automation is not allowed. So you're not going to be like, oh, I don't know automation, so I think this is not for me. You're not going to be like that, right? So you need to know manual testing as well. You need to perform tools, or perform attacks. For example, SQL injection, you need to know it manually as well, and also with SQL map. Again, SQL map is automation, so it's not allowed in OSCP. But if you know how to do it manually, then it's a cherry and cake for you. So different web application attacks, mostly server side based. There are two types: client side and server side. So client server side based, like file upload, again LFI, RFI. These attacks, local file inclusion, remote file inclusion. These attacks, learn it in a deeper level, learn different bypasses of it. If you come to client side, which is a very rare case, then you can look for XSS or SQL injection, or very rarely CSRF. But having a good knowledge on that is also important. But to a depth level, you need to understand its bypasses. You need to understand how these attacks are performed. You need to understand where these attacks are being performed. So the more, again, before you begin, the more your basics are clear, it's going to be beneficial for you every way in everything that you come across in further. Buffer overflow, well, buffer overflow only, a buffer overflow is not going to be a big deal. Buffer overflow is really easy, and it's 32-bit buffer overflow. So it's not 64-bit, it's only 32-bit buffer overflow. So again, uh, the very good resource I would say is BrainPan from TryHackMe or from Valanap. That's a really good resource to learn buffer overflow to OSCP level. If you want to learn in depth, then there are a lot of other resources. There are different vulnerable machines as well to learn in depth about buffer overflow. But even before you learn a buffer overflow, understand stack, understand the formats, understand instructions. And the most important thing is again, manual testing, understanding bad characters manually. You might get false positive with other scripts that you use, but knowing how to find bad characters manually is also really important. It helps you cross verify, it helps you give you confirmation on whichever scripts that you've used. And after you find it manually, then it's going to give you confirmation whether they exist, the bad characters, how many bad characters exist. So knowing it manually, how to find it manually, is also important. um, Understanding the public exploits. So there are a lot of exploits available, and you have to exploit this the machine with the exploits, public exploits available. You can write your own exploit as well, but that's going to again be time consuming when it comes to OSCP. So, understanding public exploits is so much important. Even if you don't understand, try to understand the logic of that exploit, where it is being, read the exploit properly, because a lot of information about that exploit, how to perform, is also given in in that exploit. So read the exploit very properly and try to at least understand the logic of the exploit. File transfers is also important. There is not only one way, but there are various ways to transfer file from Linux to Windows and from Windows to Linux. At the end of the day, you're going to be giving OSCP on on your machine, and that should be a Linux machine. So knowing different file transfers is going to be so much easier for you, because there might be certain machines where a certain type of file transfer, maybe for example Samba server is closed. What are you going to do then? Or if there is no Python on the target machine, what are you going to do then? So again, there are different ways to transfer your files, and transferring your files is important, because certain times what happens is you have an exploit or you have a script that you want to run from a target machine, but you just don't know how. After you get a reverse shell uh, of the target machine, you have to run a certain script or a certain exploit from the target machine in order to maybe escalate privileges, or in order to maybe attack further. So what you're going to do then? So knowing file transfers is also important. Privileges escalation. There are various techniques for Windows privileges escalation and Linux privileges escalation. There are two different authors on TryHackMe. One is Tribius and one is the Cyber Mentor. They have boxes for Linux privileges escalation and Windows privileges escalation on TryHackMe, which is for free. You can learn from there, you can practice from there. They are a really great resource. It helped me a lot. There were various escalation techniques that I was not aware, but I came to know from those modules. So you can always, so these are the basic things. What I'm trying to say is, these are the things that you can initially understand and learn before you enroll for OSCP. The thing for OSCP is that you get either 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days practice labs, right? So even in that, there are going to be vulnerable machines, just like Hack the Box or just like Try Hack Me. But what you have to do is, if you know these things, you don't have to waste much of time in relearning these things, or because it's going to be a very limited period practice lab for you. It's just going to be, maybe if you have taken a practice lab for 30 days, it's going to be 30 days, and you might be having 60 and 70 IBs to practice on. right? So if these are the things that you know about previously, and you have good hands-on experience previously before you enroll for your OSCP, then those practice labs you're going to do justice, because you'll be able to at least crack the maximum of them from the given list, right? Because after you enroll for OSCP, then you learn these things, and then start learning or start performing in practice labs. It's going to be really time consuming, and even your practice lab time might be 50% decreased, or you might lose all the time. So these, just practice before you do, before you enroll for OSCP. Port forwarding is also important. Having really good clarity on port forwarding, because you might get a machine where you have to port forward in order to access an internal service which you as an attacker are unable to access. So have good clarity on port forwarding as well, and practice before you enroll. Practice as much as possible. There are a lot of platforms. There's Wallen Hub, there's Hack the Box, there's Try Hack Me. You can keep, even offsec has their own PG playground. You can practice there as well, but keep practicing. My intention whenever I solve these kind of boxes, my whole intention is that if I don't know a certain thing, or if I feel stuck onto certain thing, I try to research about it, or I try to ask people out for help about it. And then if I don't, I'm stuck from everywhere. If I'm not getting my answers from researching, if I'm not getting my answers from asking somebody, that particular person has not responded to me, then and then only I'll go and watch or read a walkthrough, because walkthrough is going to restrict your mindset, it's going to restrict your thinking. Walkthroughs are written to help you out to solve your certain challenge. It's not just like, oh, you solve a challenge, you find a flag and you're done. You're not going to learn anything if you do such. So researching again is a key takeaway. Keep researching as much as possible. Then you ask out for help, and even if you don't get answers there, then and then only you read walkthrough, because by that time you've researched enough that you'll understand what is done in walkthrough. If you directly read walkthrough, you will understand, but for a temporary period. Tomorrow, if certain, just like something like that comes across to you, maybe some service that you did not know how to exploit, and you read a walkthrough and you understand it temporarily, and you're like, oh yeah, now this is so easy, and you've done it. Next time if you come across the same thing, if you come across the same exploit, either you're going to forget it, or you're not going to remember it clearly. You're just going to remember that you've done it somewhere, but what exactly you've done, you're not going to know, because you've not understood it properly. So if you've researched enough and then you go through walkthrough because you're not finding anything to do, or your any solutions that you found online are not working for you, then you read walkthrough, you're going to understand it more clearly. So even next time if you encounter certain thing like that, you'll be able to do it by yourself, and you'll also be able to explain the other person who have come across the same thing and have asked you for help. So it's going to be beneficial for you, it's going to be beneficial for them, and you're going to learn more. So tomorrow, not just for OSCP, but even in general, as pen tester, as a bug bounty hunter, if you come across the same thing and you're unable to do it, you will be able to do it because you've performed it here and you've understood it how to do it properly. Even if you're troubleshooting it, you've understood how to troubleshoot it properly. So even in future, if you come across any certain thing like that, you'll be able to do it easily. So trial and error also plays a huge important role here. Everything is based on trial and error. One thing works sometimes, the other thing does not. Just keep doing it. Somewhere some certain thing will indefinitely work. Knowing when you're ready. So you've practiced enough, then you enrolled for OSCP. Then after you enrolling for OSCP, you did you practiced on their given IPs as well, in their practice labs as well. Then how to know when you're ready for your the exam? The confidence will come automatically that you're able to do it, as long as you have done everything by yourself. uh, I personally, what I did was, after my practice labs were over, I started solving hack the box active machines, and that gave me a clarity that easy level active machines, and that gave me a clarity that at least I'm ready to give the exam. So even if you are comfortable, even you can do the same. You can start practicing active machines and hack the box. because till now, I think retired machines, if anybody who wants to get started, retired machines are a good way because they're easy. It helps you build a good approach. Active machines are solely focused on the latest exploits, the latest vulnerabilities. So somebody who's completely new might tend to get confused, or just get stuck, don't know what to do next. Retired machines has a lot of very basic machines, which can help you give clarity, which can help you build an approach. So always try to again, focus on basics, build a good approach, and after you've done all of this, you can start doing active machines on Hack the Box, and once you'll be able to do them, once you'll be able to do one by one properly, you yourself will get clarity that now you are confident enough to give the exam. All about time. Okay, I get this also asked a lot. How much time does it take to prepare for OSCP? Well, it all depends on your dedication, how much dedicated you are, or how much time you are willing to give. If you are somebody who's working, or if you're somebody who's a student, the reasons are going to come that you are going to have work. That's a part of your life, right? You have exams, you'll be having college lectures. If you are working, you will be having your job responsibilities as well. Apart from that, how much time you're willing to spare, is this is all about that. How much dedication you're going to show, it's all about that. I was somebody that even after my office hours, I used to sit for 7 and 8 hours, and I used to keep practicing, I used to keep learning new things. If you are somebody from them as well, you can do the same. Again, your dedication is really, really important. You cannot come up with reasons. OSCP is not a level of exam that you come up with reasons. Oh, I couldn't do it, I had job, or I had my college lectures. It's not for you then. Dedication is so much important. You've paid quite enough sum of money, and you have to do justice to that, and you have to do justice to yourself as well. So dedication and hard work is everywhere, and OSCP is all about that. It's just an entry level, but again, it's all about that. So dedicate your time as much as possible. Just so what, don't go to party, or don't go to clubbing and pubbing one day or 1 week or 1 month. It's not the end of the world, right? But this is, because you've invested a lot of your time, and again, you've invested a lot of finance as well. So keep dedicatedly practicing, gaining knowledge. Again, basics. The more clear you are on basics, it's going to be beneficial for you also to clear your OSCP as well. The important resources for me so far were Over the Wire, Hack the Box, TryHack, and RootMe. Over the Wire has, you can learn Linux commands as well on Over the Wire Pandit, and on Over the Wire you can also learn server side web application attacks. On RootMe also you can learn server side web application attacks, certain network challenges as well. Hack the Box and Try Hack Me are a platform where there are a lot of vulnerable machines, and it's just like CTF. You have to crack those vulnerable machines, look for a flag, and submit the flag. So they are again a part of CTF. So these are really good resources, to get started either into cybersecurity, or also if you're preparing for OSCP. But again, remember to prepare much enough before you get into OSCP. Don't target that you have to do OSCP before a certain age, or you have to do OSCP in certain time period. Focus on your skills. Don't focus on how short time you have to do it. It's not about that competition. It's not about that if you give OSCP before 18 you're going to get a bigger job and you're going to get a bigger salary. It's not about that. It's about how well and how good you are at skill. Because you might be a person who have cleared OSCP but don't know basic Linux commands. You can be that person as well, and you at the same time you can be same person that you are really good with extreme basics and you have cleared your OSCP as well. So it's up to you in which category you have to fall. If you are somebody who wants to have good knowledge, and if you want to clear OSCP, then give time, focus, and practice as much as possible. But if you're somebody who just wants to clear OSCP, then you can do quicker, you can do faster. Anything is possible, nothing is impossible. So you can do it just for the sake of certification, or you can also do it for the sake of knowledge. That's up to you. But if you're somebody who is doing for the sake of knowledge, then focus on basics again as much as possible. uh, Again, to wrap up the entire presentation, I would say that uh, give yourself some time, focus, think about yourself, think where your interest lies in, think what got you interested into cybersecurity. Just don't do it because others are doing it, and yeah, you're hacking, you're legally hacking, ethically hacking, and it is cool. Definitely it's cool, but it comes with responsibilities. It's not just like they show in movies, but there are a lot of responsibilities as well. Um, so give yourself time and think as to why you're interested in which domain you're interested in. Second, focus a lot on basics. Give 90 to 95% of your time on basics. Consider a simple example that if there is a woodcutter, the woodcutter is going to spend, and if he's given 4 hours to cut down a tree, he's going to spend three and a half hours in sharpening its axe, and then the remaining time to cut down the tree, because the more sharpened his axe is, the more easier it's going to be for him to cut down a tree. So focus again. Your axe plays your skills. So the more you focus on basics, the more you focus on skills, the more easier it's going to be for you to progress yourself into this field. And again, when it comes down to OSCP, before you enroll, practice a lot and then you enroll. Just don't enroll and then you practice as much as possible. There are so many free resources available out on the internet. You can practice there. Then you decide. Then you go and enroll for OSCP. And after you enroll for OSCP, your dedication should be 100%. If anybody else has any extra questions, you can either follow me and DM me on Twitter. I'll definitely ping you back. You can text me also on LinkedIn. And if there are more questions, then you can also ask me on YouTube. Thank you so much.
Okay, Zanika. So thanks for the session. It was really informative.
Thank
So
you.
let me check for the questions. Earlier we had a question from Rahul Kumar Rai. Is coding necessary for pen tester?
Sorry.
Yeah, so we had a question from Rahul Kumar Rai, and the question
Okay.
is coding necessary for pen tester?
Somebody who I would say that somebody who's just began into pen testing, you don't need to know the coding, but you need to have good logical skills. For example, in web application, when you have to upload a file, there is going to be a functionality called as upload. So you when you check that out, you need to understand that if I click on upload, then I have to upload a certain document. It might be a image, it might be a document, anything, maybe a text file, maybe a PDF, maybe a JPEG or GIF file, anything. So understanding those kind of simple logic for you as a pen tester initially is important. The coding part automatically later on, slowly as you keep practicing, performing different projects, or do different bug bounties, you eventually will understand. Automatically, you'll come to know that what kind of code was responsible for a certain attack to happen. So researching again is important, but as coming back to the question, initial phase, you do not need to know coding. It's really not necessary. But again, at the end of the day, if you know coding, then you can cover many things. You can, again, there are advantages to it as well. You can create your own scanner. You can understand attacks more clearly, but that's an advantage. But even if you don't know coding, that is also fine.
Okay, so we have second question from Tushar. He's asking for resource for learning port forwarding.
Uh, Okay. Tushar, why don't you just drop me a D? Okay, or else I can give you a good resource here itself. Okay. I'm going to again share my screen. This article from Hacking Articles about port forwarding and tunneling cheat sheet. This for me was really beneficial because this article covers how to, how you can create your own virtual network or your own lab to practice port forwarding in your own system. And there are various ways that you can, do port forwarding. There are various tools as well, and there are various ways as well. So this article has really been beneficial for me, even for OSCP and even in general to understand the concept of port forwarding. So if you really want, if you want this resource, you can also DM me. I can directly share you the link. If you're watching it right now, then you can go through this. It's by Raj Chandel. This is a really good resource for port forwarding.
Okay, next question is which topic to start with for OSCP?
I would say Linux. Linux is important if you know Linux, if you really have good knowledge on Linux, if you're really comfortable in knowing Linux commands, Linux tools, and Linux file structure, then you can start with web attacks because certain time what happens is on a web on a machine or on an IP or CMS or a certain vulnerable web application is hosted, and you have to take a reversal from there. So that's going to be your entry point, and on that you have to perform a certain web attack and then get a reversal. So if you are somebody, if you don't know where to begin with, then I would really suggest first you start with Linux. And if you are good with Linux, or if you have good comfortable with Linux, then you can start with web application attacks, specifically server side attacks.
Okay, so next question is by Tejas. Why should we solve CTF? In real world, no machine will be vulnerable at CTFs.
See, CTF and real life scenarios are two different things, Tejas. You're confusing yourself. What I try to say is CTF is a competition where you have to find a flag. But in order to reach that flag, you have to perform different attacks, right? So that attack base, that attack where you have to perform, that is real time. So, for example, let me again, I gave you a file upload. I gave a file upload thing, right? So, there might be a possibility that you have to upload a file and gain a reversal. And when you are into attacker's machine, there somewhere a flag is hidden. So that became a CTF where you got a attacker's shell and you are looking for a flag, and maybe the flag is stored somewhere in etc folder. So that became CTF. But you uploaded a file and then you got a reversal, right? So this becomes a real time scenario. So to reach a flag, you have to perform different attacks. These attacks are all real time based, and every attack is going to be different in CTF. Every scenario you're going to get is going to be different, and CTFs are mostly designed on real time challenges. So you definitely will face, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, some other day, you will come across certain challenges that you've solved in CTF. So yeah, I would say that CTF attacks that you perform to get a flag, those are all real based. So you will come across them. One of them at least, for sure.
Okay, so and next question is any good certificate for malware reverse engineering?
Um, I am not aware so far for the certification for malware analysis. Uh, but I really believe that knowing coding for malware is important, and certain good knowledge on web application attacks is important. But a specific certificate for malware analysis, I'm currently not aware. Maybe I can research about it for you, and then maybe I can do a good research and check out the certifications that are available on the internet, and we can discuss further, which might be beneficial. Even I might be interested. Why don't you? Why I don't know who messaged, who asked this question, but that person can definitely, ping me on Twitter. We can take this conversation from there.
Okay, so last question for this session. Automation tools are not allowed for OSCP. Is it for only exploitation or reckon as well? Let us share which kind tools not allowed, which are allowed.
Okay, anything which is automating is not allowed. So it may be reconnaissance or reconnaissance. I wouldn't say, like, because in reconnaissance you're just trying to gain as much as information about a particular thing that you're going to exploit. So for that, again, see, dirbuster, gobuster, dir search, these are tools for directory enumeration. So enumeration here is the key point. As long as it's enumerating, it's fine. But if it's enumerating and then it's telling you, oh, in this CMS this is the keyhole, in this file there is this file hosted, and this is, there is some secret password. So this is automation, because it's automatically telling, it's enumerating, and it is telling you which file to look for. So as long as it's automation, anything, reconnaissance, exploitation, anything, automation is not allowed. But if it's enumeration, then it's fine, because for directories, fetching out different directories, you are enumerating. Even after you get a reverse shell, you are enumerating for different files inside the system. So for using, for example, if it's a Linux machine, you're using the script called linenum, right? So again, that is also enumerating and telling you different files and different folders that are there on the system. It's not going to automate the process for you. So as long as any tool that is not automating, then it's fine. But anything, it may be anything regards to automation, it's completely not allowed in the exam. So just do not risk for it. Learn manual as much as possible. Even after you get a reverse shell as well, when you are trying to look for different files, look manually also, and you use scripts also, because certain things you might find manually and you might not find on script. So even that is the case, and certain things you might find on script but you might have missed out manually also. So practicing both is always a good habit. So just don't get into automation, and try not to use automation as much as possible, because it's not only allowed, but it's always a best practice. So tools like dirbuster, dirsearch, again nmap, of course. For reconnaissance, that as long as it's reconnaissance, it's fine. But after the shell, for post exploitation, linenum, Linux exploit suggester, it's just suggesting you which exploits may be vulnerable. It's not going to tell you directly that, oh, this is the exploit that is vulnerable. So as long as it's not doing that, it is fine. Again, Windows exploit suggester, you have linpeas and winpeas. There is a huge confusion right now if linpeas tool is allowed or no, because the previous version of linpeas was automating and telling you where the secrets or where the files are stored, or certain else secretive information where you can, directly go and exploit. Linpeas used to tell that, but the latest link piece just enumerates. So just get a confirmation from the offensive security team if the latest link piece is allowed, and then you can begin with that tool as well. So these are few of the tools that you are allowed to use in the exam. But automation is a strict no-no. No matter it is for reconnaissance, no matter it's for exploitation, or no matter it's for post exploitation. Automation is a huge no.
Okay, Janika, thank you for your insightful session. So now we will end the meetup with this session today. And I would like to thank everyone for joining with us today. We will
Thank
meet
you
in the
so much.
next, yeah. So now we will meet in the next meetup next month. Until then, bye and have a great day ahead.